Stonehenge. I went on a research campaign, if you will, to find out what the people look like. I kept being drawn through the Dowsing principle to a very large barrow on the Salisbury Plain. Stonehenge is sited on the Salisbury Plain, and the Salisbury Plain is run by the military. What I discovered was the largest long barrow ever constructed in northwest Europe was on that Salisbury Plain. Some have a megalithic chambers within them and some don't. So some are classified as earthen mounds and some are classified as megalithic mounds, the ones with the chambers. When I found the biggest long mound on Salisbury Plain, it must have been for hundreds of people that lived at Stonehenge. But it wasn't. It was decreed for one person and one person alone, and that was of a woman. And we hardly ever hear of the prehistoric women in the British landscape, apart from Boudica, an Iron Age Iceni queen, who basically challenged the Romans. So I decided to research this woman that was placed in this mound and find out who she was and the age of her. She was dated to the Neolithic period, about 5,500 years old, and I tracked her down to Cambridge University. And when I went to see her, I instantly realised she had an elongated skull. Her skull was much longer than ours. We have round faces and round skulls. Hers wasn't. So she was an elongated person, and she must have been high-ranking. She must have been a high priestess or a queen to have been buried as a single interment into the largest mound in northwest Europe. And also, she had been murdered. So I decided then to investigate all the other long mounds on the Salisbury Plain and find out who were buried in these mounds. And it turned out they too all had elongated skulls, and they too had all been murdered and then placed within these mounds.
Are they all women?
If these elongated head beings were murdered, what was the purpose of preserving their bodies? Could they have held the keys to the portal? Perhaps Stonehenge and the placement of its stones that represent Saturn, the Moon, and the Sun also serves to prompt modern-day humans to remember who we are and where we came from.
Saturn is known to be the kind of the harsh taskmaster. It's where we get things like tough love, sort of. And it's not an evil thing, but it's almost like you have to prune the tree in order to exacerbate growth. Sometimes